Hello, Joy Brooks with Email and Coffee. I've shared most of my life with dogs. Augie, Gordy, Sam, Buddy, Lady, Ginger, Roxanne, Molly, Lucy, and Tasha. All good friends with their own unique personalities. In this episode of Email and Coffee, I speak with the founder of Thinking Canine about dogs and children, rescues, communication, training, and come to remind myself that sometimes, it's not so much about training the dog as it is training the trainer. And now, Gia Savocchi. Hey everyone, Joy Brooks, Email and Coffee. I am talking today with Gia Savocchi. We're both Long Islanders, so if we start talking like this, you'll know why. Go ahead, Gia. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Gia Savocchi, and I live in Suffolk County on Long Island, so a little farther out than you. And I am a dog behavior specialist and dog expert, and I'm also an educator on Instagram and TikTok and social media. And I get to use my talents and show the world more about dogs and dog behavior.
That's a pretty cool thing. I've watched a few of the videos. That's how I got hooked. Because I've got 3 dogs. The 3-dog night thing. Joy to the world and 3-dog night. You get it. In any case, I have a husky, and she's right beneath me. I have a Boston Terrier, and she's floating around somewhere. And then I have a 9,000-year-old Cocker Spaniel who has no teeth and her tongue hangs out of her mouth.
Oh, shoot. How old is that in actual years?
Oh, gosh, she's just... I don't even know how old she is.
Okay.
I keep forgetting. Sometimes I'll say 14, sometimes it's 16. All I know is she's old. She's old. Every time I look at the paperwork from the vet, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so old. In any case, it's I like to think of my dogs as not human dogs and not dog humans, but I get it. Like, I like to think that I get it. And, their behavior, and that we'll talk a little bit about behavior, their behavior always challenges me because it's sort of like you're speaking to somebody who doesn't speak your language, right? You think to yourself, well, they have emotions and they have likes and, they're hungry and they got to go to the bathroom. So there are a lot of things in common. And then there are a lot of things that are not in common. So
Absolutely.
It's always interesting to think you're having a conversation with the dog. So what do you say about people who think they're talking to their dogs?
Well, dogs don't understand English. They know a few words, and some dogs know more words than others. But generally, they're not going to understand the words that we're saying. And they also can't mentally comprehend a lot of the concepts that we're trying to convey to them. So having a conversation with a dog, for example, about you did this, so it upset me. It makes no sense, not only because they don't know English, but because they don't have a theory of mind like we do. So they don't understand that their behavior can negatively affect us. They can't act on spite. They just don't have like advanced capacity the way people do. And so some of the conversations we're even having, it would be like somebody having a conversation with an infant or a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old. Like it's not even that they don't understand the words, it's that they can't comprehend the concept.
What about, and I've seen so many of them, the games that you have where the dogs hit a button and then they begin to speak? Like, how far ahead are these dogs that they're doing that?
So we have a few clients that their dogs use talking buttons, and some of our clients are like more well-known dogs that use the talking buttons. I think that animals, I think the jury is still out on it. I think dogs, they're using language not the way like humans and chimpanzees can use language. I think they're using language in a more rudimentary way where it's like, okay, this word means this action or this item, but possibly not like in it to an advanced level. It'd be like how an infant, like a baby can use sign language. An infant that's really young, like really young babies can use sign language. And they can describe their emotions to an extent, and they can request items and they can request help, but they're not able to have a complex
Mm-hmm.
conversation.
Mm-hmm. I've often said that, some dogs are like, they they're as smart. It's like a 4 or 5 year old, and if you have a really smart dog, you've got a 6 year old.
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't get much. They don't get much smarter
Yeah.
than that. But 6 year old dog. I mean, I had a Rottie, and that dog was pretty damn smart. Um, you took out a box, and she knew we're moving. We're moving again because she saw us move 4 times, and every time those boxes came out, she was like, what are you doing? And I mean, the more you talk with a dog and even a cat, the more that they will they're not understanding the language, but they're able to sort of like start to connect with you. It's just like if two dogs were there, and right, if two dogs were like whining at each other, over time they would begin to understand, each other, and go, I don't like when you do that, and I'm
Yeah.
going to nip at you. you know and that's another thing, dogs getting along with other dogs. Those types, those types of behaviors are interesting, and they're hard for humans to grasp. In other words, like, I have 3 dogs. No, it's not like hunky-dory all the time,
Mm.
and food is a trigger. So I can do food, but I can't put like 3 bowls of food down and say, oh, dinner time, because
Mm.
all hell will break loose. One dog will eat everything,
The husky?
including the other dogs.
Which one? It's the husky?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the husky's a wolf,
Yeah.
clearly. My other 2 dogs, they have forever had their 2 little bowls on 2 opposite sides with the water in the middle, and they go to their bowls and they eat their dinner, and they're like, "Thank you very much. I have a little crumb over here. Can you wipe my face?"
Yeah.
Totally, totally. Um, they're polite, but the husky is not.
Yeah.
She's just a lunatic.
And that kind of goes back to the language thing too, because we can't explain to your dog, when you do this, it upsets the other dog. When you do this, it upsets me. We can't, ask them, even if they are button users, like, why are you doing this? What is your motivation? I don't think that they have a grasp of it anyway. I don't think a dog can, like a human can want to go to therapy and want to change and have goals. And I don't think animals, I think they act in the moment and they are just trying to, act on whatever their desire might be at that moment.
They do have memories, though.
They do have memories. Yeah. They have great
And
memories. And in some ways, they have a better memory for things than people do, actually. I think they recognize faces faster than people do. They can process smells and recognize smells and categorize them way faster than people do. They can remember how to get to a place, like if they're walking back and forth, maybe better than people can in some regards. Like their memories can be better than people in some ways. Yeah.
and it's not so, I think a lot of people who have had dogs have had this timing thing where, somebody's coming home at a specific time every day. So my husband used to pull up with the truck every day, and they would know 15 minutes before.
Oh, yeah.
And I would say, did they hear it? I mean, they don't know what time it is, but maybe they know something.
Yeah.
There's
I think
something going on.
Yeah, I think they somehow are able to tell roughly what time it is, and who knows how that is,
right? And
It,
a
yeah.
lot of you've heard stories. I've heard stories about people who have passed. So the dog is now masterless, and the dog is still waiting for that person to come home. And
Yeah.
when my husband passed away, uh, Lu- Lucy did the strangest things with gray trucks. Whenever she saw a gray truck, she'd be like, I'd be like, no, that's not Harry. And, she doesn't do it anymore, but I thought to myself, it's the noise of the truck. It's not the color, but it is the color because she knows she's not doing it to black trucks. She's doing it to
Yeah.
gray trucks. Just, it's a little
Yeah.
interesting.
And it's, again, we can't explain to them, that somebody has died, that they're not coming back. I mean, it's the same with really young children too. They just don't understand. Although I think some dogs, like when I had other animals pass away that live here, and my dogs have had the opportunity to see what was happening, I think they understand. But I think when you come home without somebody, they don't understand at
Right,
all, because you
right.
can't tell them what happened.
Yeah, it was like on Monday, Tasha went and she got spayed on Monday. So Sunday night, I'm saying, Lucy, tomorrow, and I'm thinking, is there something wrong with me? I'm
Yeah.
telling the dog that tomorrow Tasha's going into the hospital.
Yeah. Although, again,
Mhm.
with the buttons, I think because of the consistency with some of the people which are teaching buttons, they are using words like to describe past, present, future. So I think it's possible that the dogs can start to learn the concept of later or tomorrow. Maybe, we don't have a lot of studies on this stuff, so it's
Yeah,
all a
I find
guess
it.
right
I,
now.
I I find it totally fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on the topic of dogs, what about rescue dogs? Because while my heart goes out to everybody and every rescue dog that I've ever seen, I have never been able to rescue a dog because I'm
Oh,
always
interesting.
afraid. I'll take a dog home, I'll try to rescue it, and I will not trust the dog. It will take me a long time to trust that dog because I have no idea. There's a story. My brother-in-law passed away, and he had a pit bull mix. The dog was large dog, and brought the dog home. So I had two dogs, and this was the third at the time. I had little dogs. I had like a Dachshund and a mini pin. Brought Rusty home. Now everybody sleeps in the bed all together, so Rusty's in bed, slid right between my husband and myself. The dog took my husband's hand, put it in its mouth, and as a pit bull will, would not let go.
Like in a mean way?
No, just like, hello, you're not touching her. And I'm like,
Mm.
what the heck is this all about? This dog knows no females
Hmm.
because it was my brother-in-law's dog, and my brother-in-law was single. I'm like, what is this all about? The dog is protecting me? I don't know. So that went on for about a half an hour, and my husband said, calmly, get rid of this dog tomorrow. And unfortunately, I brought the dog into the Babylon pound, and they told me right then and there, this dog's going to be euthanized because no one's going to want this dog.
Hmm.
And I was like, I can't, I'm not going to argue with my husband over the dog. It's only going to cause more stress for the dog. So it was very sad.
Yeah.
Poor
And the
Rusty,
dog came from where?
my brother-in-law. So it
Oh, is
wasn't
it?
rescue. It was my brother-in-law's dog. But my
Yeah.
brother-in-law was, he liked to play rough with the dog.
Yeah.
So the dog played rough, and I can't. I'm this little girl. I can't have
Yeah.
rough play with my two little dogs. So I didn't trust that dog, and that happens. You know, that's what I think when I look at a rescue. I'm like, I don't know the history of this dog.
Yeah. So
So what?
general, like,
Yeah. What do you tell
yeah.
people?
So generally, like in the situation that you were describing with that dog, we would have recommended like you see like a veterinary behaviorist or somebody like me for an evaluation, grab a video of what the heck is going on with the dog, and then we have a consultation. We talk about it and we decide what we're going to do, and we decide like, okay, is this dog adoptable to any home? Is this dog dangerous. And then we always recommend that the owners just euthanize them themselves rather than take them to the animal shelter, because it's possible the dog goes on to bite somebody else, because we do have a lot of shelters on Long Island that adopt out very dangerous dogs to the general public. Yeah. And then also what can happen too with a dog, like we see people will send the dog to the animal shelter and the dog lives there for the next 10 years in a cage and they're like insane and that kind of thing. So it's always better, unless you feel like, if somebody feels unsafe in their own home and the dog has bitten and broken skin, there's a 10-day waiting period, which you can call the health department sometimes and get that waived. But anyway, it's always better to just take your dog to your vet yourself, if you have a nice vet, or call like one to do it yourself. But I understand sometimes it's not always possible. Like if the dog injures somebody or you're afraid of we get sometimes, the police have to come and get a dog out of the house because the people can't even touch it.
I know.
Yeah. So how do you trust a rescue dog? Well, I think, my dogs are, one of them is a rescue and she's really great and like very good dog. And then the other two are from the same breeder. And even when you get a dog from a breeder, even if you get a dog from a good breeder, you can end up with a dog that's a nut job. So you always have to keep that in mind, that no matter where you get a dog, you may end up with something that has a big problem. Just like people can be really nice people and they are high functioning, people that seem mentally stable, and they can have a child that's just not okay. It can happen with animals too. It's not all how you raise them or all like strictly like genetics is a complex thing, right? So even if you get a dog from a breeder, you may end up with a dog with a problem. And rescue dogs. So a lot of people think, oh, well, if you get a rescue and it's a puppy, then you can raise them how you want and they're going to turn out okay. And actually, that's not entirely the case. I would almost rather adopt an adult dog who's been evaluated by somebody really good that I know is a known quantity than a puppy that's 8 weeks old that I can kind of evaluate, but I don't know how the puppy is going to developmentally progress. And we do recommend, we do support rescue, and I meet and evaluate a nice amount of rescue dogs, like an okay number of rescue dogs that I'm like, wow, this is a stellar dog. But I also evaluate a lot of rescue dogs that are wildly problematic. And most of our severe cases that we have involving severe injuries or like death of a pet, like a dog killing another dog or cat, almost exclusively either rescue dogs or dogs from Amish or, Mennonite puppy mills, or a puppy mill in general. So
yeah,
that kind of says something.
That's something that came to my, I learned about that last year. I know about puppy mills, but Lucy came from, I think, Indiana, and they said Mennonite, and I'm like, what? And then they told me the story, and I'm like, I'll never ever buy a dog from a dog shop again.
Yeah. So you and getting a dog from a dog shop, I would say, is even more risky than getting a rescue dog, because you're essentially getting something that has parents that are not and never were family pets for generations. And you have animals who don't have proper medical care, they don't have good food, and they have no enrichment for the most critical period that the brain is forming. So it's like essentially like you're getting a child that was in a crib from 0 to 3 and stared at a wall. Like the brain does not recover fully from that. And so you see like problems, and then physical problems and that kind of thing, because they don't have health testing. But a lot of people don't know. And a lot of people don't know how to pick a dog from a good breeder and what to look for. And people don't know how to pick a dog that's a rescue and what to look for.
Mm-hmm. I'd say that, I've done dogs all my life. I have no clue. It's by luck. I have no clue. I don't know what I'm looking for.
I mean,
I always,
it's pretty easy. Like if you want to get a dog from a good breeder, you go to the breed club website. So if I want a Bichon, very cute, but I never would. But if one of my friends breeds them, if I wanted a Bichon, I would go to the Bichon Club of America and I would look and see all their approved breeders, because their approved breeders are breeders that are showing the dogs, so they fit the breed standard. They're okay. They're looking good, but they also are mentally fit enough to be going to these dog shows and handled by people, and they're not aggressive. Awesome. And then we also know that they're completing the health testing that's deemed necessary for that breed by the breed organization in the United States. So when you go to the breed club website and you see their recommended breeders, you've got an easy list right there of good breeders to pick from in that particular breed. Or you go to dog shows, you meet breeders, you talk to them, you interact with their dogs, you see how their dogs act, and you learn more about the dog and the breed. And so that's like crash course in how do I find a good breeder.
that's that's good information, because a lot of people they'll go to the ASPCA because the kids are nagging the parents.
Yeah.
Parents finally give in. They go, they either go to the pet store or the ASPCA and they pick up a dog. And it's, I've been lucky. I've been lucky. Although, I've had a few interesting dogs in my past, but I've been lucky. Knock on wood. So, and that, there's another thing. It's like fear of dogs. When, a kid says, I want a dog, I want a dog. In the meantime, they're petrified. They're petrified of
Yeah.
the dog. They really don't know what to do. Or worst case scenario is, and I've seen this happen so many times, some young kids and dogs, like the kids will pull the dog's ear, pull the dog's tail, poke their
Yeah.
eyes out, and the dog loves it and they grow up together. It's like this Hollywood movie. And sometimes that's not the best thing in the world.
No. So with families with children, yeah, you really have to think long and hard about if you want to have the added stress of a dog in your house when you have children. And then we always recommend people do like courses, like Dog Meets Baby is a great account and course where you can take, virtual courses on how to teach children to interact with dogs, how to have dogs and children together in a household. But it's not easy. And we see a lot of accidents. A lot of people don't prepare their dog when they're having a baby and then call us because they brought the baby home and the dog is acting like a savage and it's terrifying. Or there's an accident. And, dogs are not stuffed animals, they're not playthings. And so we also need to make sure children aren't manhandling and harassing them, because that will cause a big problem or an accident down the road. And if a child learns that at their house they can kiss the dog and lay on the dog and hug the dog because their dog is friendly and their dog doesn't mind or tolerates, the child that learns to react inappropriately to animals at your house will go to a friend's house and do it to the wrong dog, and they're going to get really hurt. And so if a family is looking to get a dog and they have young children, they really have to make sure they're getting their dog. Like my breeder has grandchildren and children all around her dogs all the time. Like, so I know that my dog and her lines, they're good with babies and little kids, and they don't bite. Like if they get mad, they don't bite.
They're well socialized.
Yeah, they're well socialized, but also like mentally they're working line dogs, and they can't be biting and injuring livestock, and so they really inhibit any kind of aggression.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you've got other people raising dogs, and these dogs are not it's not even that they're unsocialized, it's that they're dogs that are not family pets. And that goes back to, again, when you look at dogs from puppy mills, like these are coming from cultures where dogs aren't pets, they're livestock. Dogs aren't handled, they're living outside in cages or in a barn. And so these dogs are not being bred to be nice to people. They're being bred for one purpose and one purpose only, which is to be sold at 6 to 8 weeks. And so those dogs especially are an unknown quantity when it comes to how they're going to act around children, because they're not being bred to be friendly family pets.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's checking up. So when you get a dog from a good breeder, like my breeder and I, we chat, quite regularly. And she asks me how my dogs are doing and she follows up on the puppies. A big red flag of a breeder is they don't ask you how your dog is. They're not like, hey, does your dog have any behavior issues? Is your dog showing any signs of aggression? They don't ever want to see a video of the dog. Like that's another red flag too, for not a good breeder, is they don't care what they're putting out, because that means they're just breeding the same thing over and over because they were able to sell them, not because they're breeding something that's actually doing well in society. So I'm not against, I think rescue dogs can be great. And one of my own dogs is a rescue dog. Like I said, I take rescue dogs into my house multiple times a year and I foster them from our town shelter. And, I have 2 cats and 3 dogs, and I would never put my own pets or myself or any of my friends at risk. And so when I bring home a shelter dog, I'm really making sure that I don't see any signs of aggressive behavior or problems in that pet. And I think if you have a shelter dog evaluated by somebody that's skilled, and that dog is not coming from a shelter that adopts out aggressive animals, and that shelter has a good reputation, I think that a rescue dog can be a good option. And sometimes the history of the rescue dog, and they've been around kids and somebody died and then they couldn't keep the dog, or they've been around kids and somebody got sick and they couldn't keep the dog. So sometimes that the dog actually is good around kids too, or, more about the dog.
A lot of times, I've often said when you take your dog to get trained, you're getting trained too, because you find oftentimes, oh, you mean I'm not doing this right? No, and I know that I don't train my dogs properly. Again, I've been lucky, but it's I have some odd things that I do, and one of those things that I do try to do is be consistent, right? The concept of lying to a dog, it's not that they don't understand lies. It's just you will really stress out a dog. If you say to the dog, and I hope I'm not going to stress out my dog, are you sleeping? Do you want to go for a walk? And then you don't do anything.
Yeah.
Don't
People
do that
it
to a dog.
They'll be like, oh, squirrel, or they trick them. And we only advocate for tricking your dog in extreme emergency. So for example, if my dog got out my front gate, I might be like, oh, grandma's here, to try to trick my dog to come back home. But otherwise it's not nice.
It's not nice.
No, not nice.
Especially, if you do come, and this is something I try to explain to my husband. I was like, I know you're not going to understand this, but if the dog is running out, and if you are lucky enough to get the dog to come back by saying come, if you smack that dog, the dog will never come to you again. And you've just ruined everything.
Yeah.
Because now you say come, and the dog says, oh, when you say come, I get smacked, so I'm not coming ever again.
Yep.
So it's a little difficult when the dog does something that you don't like, and you get them to acknowledge something about it, and then you punish the dog. They don't understand what they just did. For example, they pee in the house, and you say, come over here, and they do. They come over here, and they do, and then you smack it for peeing. They don't know that you're punishing it for peeing. What they get is come, smack, that's it, I'm never coming to you again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And house training, every dog is so different. Every dog is so different. I found that, speaking of house training, because I always get a dog when I have a dog. Normally, the dog socializes the other dog to going out. So it's almost a week, and they're house trained. And I didn't do anything. I just said, when I had Molly and I had Ginger, I said, Ginger, go out, go do your stuff. And she did. And Molly followed her and said, oh, you pee outside. Molly was trained in a week. However, Lucy, would go outside with Molly, and Molly would pee, and Lucy would be, that's nice, come inside, and she'd pee in the house.
Oh, that's funny.
So it took a really long time, and then it just dawned on her. Now, unfortunately, Molly is 9,000 years old, and if I don't catch her in time, she just pees wherever she is. Because,
That's nice.
Yeah, it's not. So I just have to be aware. But, I trained Lucy trained Tasha. And Tasha has had a few accidents. But the other thing is that if one dog, because the dogs are socializing other dogs, if the dog trains the other dogs to pee outside, then I've always found it interesting, because I always walk my dogs, that they pee outside, but they don't pee on the walk. It takes them a long time to realize, oh, I pee on the walk too.
Oh,
Takes a long
sometimes, yeah.
time.
Some of them, yeah.
And I still haven't gotten Tasha. Tasha might pee on the walk, but usually not. She has not pooped on the walk at all. Not at all. She'll come home. First thing she'll do in the backyard, she'll go poop. I'm like, oh, well, whatever.
Yeah. Sometimes that's because they're a little nervous when they're walking and they're unsure, so they don't want to go to the bathroom yet. But sometimes they just think that the house is the toilet.
Yeah, the house is the toilet.
Yeah. Just like a person, really.
My husband told me that he had a cat that used the toilet bowl. I was like, that must have been difficult to train. And he says, no, the cat just did it. I'm like, you're kidding.
That's crazy.
I know. And I'm like, I'm thinking, should I believe him?
I mean, it's possible.
I've seen videos. I've seen lots of videos.
I've seen cats that use the toilet, but people train them to do it,
Right. Very, very. You'd think that a cat is not like a dog, but they can be pretty smart too.
Yeah, they're smart.
They can be pretty smart. So some of my other interesting questions, let me put my glasses on so I can ask them. Oh, how about this one? Okay. So, well, two things. The distraction thing. So the dog is doing something you don't like, and you don't want them to do it. So you try the distraction, like dogs chewing a blanket. Yeah, you don't want the dog to chew a blanket, so you go get a toy, and you're like, oh, the toy, right? And the dog stops chewing the blanket and plays with the toy. Of course, if the toy is a sock, you haven't trained the dog to do a damn thing. Now the dog says, oh, so you don't want me to chew your blanket, but I could chew your clothes. Okay, I got it. So, do you have how do you train the person to train the dog about positive behaviors as opposed to negative behaviors, and that distraction thing where you're trying to get the dog's mind off of doing the bad thing?
I mean, so basically we're treating the dog like they're a toddler. So if the dog is like, I'm going to chew on this, or I'm going to do this, and I'm like, I just say their name and give them what I want them to do instead, or tell them what I want them to do instead. So it's a lot of repetition. And a lot of dogs are just doing bad things because they aren't, their needs are not fulfilled. Most dogs don't get enough exercise. They have 2 rubber chew toys in the whole house, or they don't even have bones. My dogs have 30 bones, literally at least 30 different chew things that they actually like horns and hooves and antler and collagen sticks in a box. So they never choose to ruin my things because they have things of their own. Not just one rubber toy, So a lot of it is if you actually exercise your dog and gave them something else to do, they wouldn't be doing bad things in the first place. And then anytime they do something we don't like, we just say to redirect them to something we do want, but to use your words. So if my dog was barking out the window, I would say their name. And when they listen to me, I'd tell them they were good. And then I would tell them to go lay down in their bed, or I would play a game with them. I would show them hey, if there's landscapers outside, I don't want you to stare out the window. I want you to play with your toy. I want you to go lay in your bed. I want you to eat your puzzle, whatever. So it's all about, for every don't do that, there's a do this instead. And we have to show them what do this is and reward them for do this. And repeat over and over till
Repeat.
they get it. I don't so much like distract them as tell them. I mean, sometimes I distract them if I'm like, I don't really want to deal with this, but I tell them what to do or I show them what to do rather than distract them. So I'm like calling them away, telling them what I need, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. So, that's like the door thing. So you try to get the dog so the dog doesn't freak out when the doorbell rings and try to run out the door
Yeah.
when it comes. So, you play that game while nobody's there. Like you pretend that somebody's there and you
Yeah.
keep doing that over and over again. I am they're pretty good with back, but 3 dogs is tough, but they're pretty good with back. So the doorbell rings, they're all excited. I've been able to say back, 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 and they get back. But
Oh, that's
sometimes it's
good.
like back, 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 back. I feel like
Yeah.
somewhat of a parrot saying it 5,000
That's
times.
funny.
But
Yeah. Yeah, I think like also sometimes there's easier ways to do it. Like I just put them behind the baby gate in the kitchen if somebody shows up. So they all know kitchen means go in the kitchen. I close the gate and then I can open the door and they're not there except the one that can jump the gate. So
yeah,
yeah.
I have put them in the bedroom, and I do have gates. I haven't done the gates. I have put them in the bedroom, and I just basically say, okay, everybody in the bedroom, and they go begrudgingly. They go into the bedroom, and
Yeah.
I only do that because I figured that maybe the person doesn't like jumping dogs because they get very
Many.
excited, and that's it's difficult to get a dog unexcited. Sort of like somebody comes, they're excited.
Yeah. Well, it's
How
a
do you
skill.
unexcite a dog?
You have to teach them how to go from being excited to calm and like as a skill. Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
That is a
But I
tough one.
mean, and the more you train them, the better they do. But like often people don't want to do tons of training. And so then we're never going to get there. But that's okay because
Right. Well, that's
what's the
when
big
people,
deal?
right.
Yeah.
Again, you have to train the trainer. And I've said it a million times. I'm like, I I've had people say, okay, lead with your left hand. Never, or whatever, when you say come, whatever it is, they say it over and over and over again to me. And I'm like, you have no idea that I have no concept of, I know my left from my right. Like if you tell me in a car, make a left turn, I'm going to make a left turn. But if you were to tell me to use my hands with the dog in an instant where I'm doing 3 things at once, forget it. I'm like, okay, you
Yeah.
want me to step left with my right hand? No, it's not working. Dog's
No.
going to be smarter than I am.
And we teach like very simple things to our pet parents and it's a lot of like it's nothing crazy, nothing complex. It's basic things to do and basic games because we want the training process to be as simple and quick as possible.
Like the touch game.
Like the touch game. We like that game. Yeah.
That's a good one. That one, Tasha picked that one up pretty good, and now she's got it. So when I do come, she comes right to my hand.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's just it's like one easy way to teach come rather than teaching like a formal recall and people like it and the dogs like it and it's
How
fun.
how long do you reward? Forever with a treat?
Um yeah, I tend to reward my dogs on some level forever because I'm feeding them constantly, so I might as well make them work for it, you know? And then if I'm training a younger dog, even my like 14 and a half-year-old dog, she feels very left out and she wants to participate and she wants to work too. Because they like working with me and they like training. And then like the younger dog I have who's 2, the one that travels around with me, she is like not really that food motivated. Um, and she is motivated by chasing like balls and rocks and sticks or playing with something that's in your hand. So when we're traveling and we're on a beach or she's loose somewhere, every time I call her back, I could take a leaf and do this with the leaf and let her chase the leaf literally in my hand. And to her, that's the biggest treat in the world. Or I'll call her and skip a rock for her. That's like a big treat for her. So for some dogs, you're not even using food. You could use a toy or play.
Right. Yeah. That's why I say the dogs have, like they have personalities. They have personalities. And I've often said that I don't want to break the dog's personality, like when they're puppies. I want to find out what their personality is before I beat it out of them. And I don't mean beat it out of them, but I just mean, a lot of times you, like Lucy is stubborn. Molly is the biggest goofball in the world. Um, and Tasha right now, Tasha's only 7 months old. Tasha's a sweetheart. I don't know what she's going to develop into, but when I'm training them and they get bored, I stop. Like, I'm not like, oh, well, come on, it's like they're bored. They don't want to do this anymore. That's
Yeah.
it. Now I'm, working against the dog and myself, and I'm just going to end up frustrated and frustrating them. So, like, cut it out. So, and it happens. Tasha gets bored really fast.
Yeah.
And Lucy's just stubborn. She'll look at me and go, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. And a lot
And
of
I
that.
know that's what she's saying. I know that's
Yeah.
what she's saying. One of the funny thing is, this has always been, this happened to me. I always say, be careful what you name your animals. Because very often you think that it's a cute name. You're naming them in a certain way after somebody. And odd things happen. For example, I had 2 cats. They were gray. I named them. They were sisters, Thelma and Louise. They had a litter of cats within 6 months. So I had 2 cats and then I had 30. I was like, Thelma and Louise, Joy, what are you, crazy? After they gave birth to their litters, they both took off. I was like, Thelma and
Oh,
Louise.
shit.
Thelma and Louise. Then I had Molly is definitely a Molly. She's a goofball. Lucy was named Lucille McGillicuddy after Lucille Ball, and she is. That's who she is. She is that personality. She is I Love Lucy. So, when you name a dog, you have to think to yourself, why are you
Yeah.
naming them that way? And perhaps you're going to turn them into that personality. It's just,
Yeah. Well, in the animal shelter too, I like names that are sweet names and that like somebody would want to adopt a dog with a name like that, like not a name that makes the dog sound tough or bad or
hey, killer. Oh, that's not
yeah,
not bringing that dog home.
Tyson. Like,
Yeah, really. That's what I'm saying. It's, you could sort of, it's probably what the human put into that dog because they're naming them in a certain way. It the relationship between a human and a dog is so incredibly interesting. Um, I know, people have cats have interesting relationships, but the relationship between a dog and a human is oh, eh, like, I don't know, it's historical. It's I mean, it goes back thousands of years. Like when humans at some point in time said, let's take wolves and we'll use them. And there's some sort of a memory, a genetic memory built in between humans and dogs. At least I've
yeah.
always felt that way. I've always
Well,
felt it's a unique relationship.
well, dogs, came about because, well, it wasn't because people like took them to use them. It was because dogs co-evolved with humans. Like as humans became, went from being hunters to like agrarian, dogs, wolves, or something that was like a wolf, maybe not actually a wolf. They were sticking around the camps more, eating garbage there. And so the wolves that were braver and less skittish of people were like breeding more because they were having access in that new niche, which is the village. And then as time went on, now you have an animal that is living among people, warning people if anything is amiss. So, village dogs, if there's strangers around, strange dogs, strange people, something's going down, they're loud, they bark, they let you know. So they started serving as guard dogs. And then as they became more tame, like not tame because people are handling them, but tame because they're evolving next to people and surviving because of people, then people started like selectively breeding dogs for all the traits we have today. But because they co-evolved with us, they're one of the only species that understands our facial expressions. They respond to like a point, which chimpanzees don't even. Chimpanzees struggle with some of our facial expressions, I think. They don't respond to like a pointing finger or pointing foot. They don't understand innately that it means we're trying to show them something. Whereas dogs innately, without any prior training, can understand that like a human pointing means that they should look at something. And
Right.
that's just because of evolution, which is crazy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I guess cats the same way because cats did the rat thing, the rodent thing.
Cats are interesting. Yeah, but cats are more self-sufficient. Like they
Mm.
actually can live wild. Dogs, like cats can live in the wild. Dogs can't really. They don't hunt well anymore. Yeah, dogs are truly codependent on us. Cats are not.
Right. It's true because you can
Yeah.
have we have at least 3 stray cats in the neighborhood, and they're doing very well. It's been 6 or 7 years. They're
Yeah.
just fine. They're fine.
I have a cat that I have two cats and one goes out and sometimes she doesn't come back for a couple of days and she comes back with a full belly and her breath does not smell like cat food. I know she brings stuff back too. Like I know she's hunting and having a grand old time. I did get a letter of complaint from a neighbor actually that she was killing rabbits in their yard. Like, okay. But a cat is like a true predator,
Yes, it
whereas
is.
a dog is a scavenger. And when you look at street dogs and village dogs, they are not really predators. They're not killing chickens so
No, no,
much or
they're picking
killing
garbage,
people's cats. Yeah, they're eating garbage or begging for food. They're pretty nice, actually. They're lower aggression in most countries.
and there are a lot of them. I remember going to Israel, and there were a lot of stray
Oh,
dogs,
yeah.
and Spain too. A lot of stray dogs. It's kind of sad. It's kind of sad. I mean, they end up pack mentality, so they end up like thugs in the corner in the alleyway, like 15 dogs
Yeah.
playing cards.
It depends on the country. Like I spent 6 weeks in Colombia with my dog and 2 weeks in El Salvador just this past month. And my dog, there's street dogs everywhere and they're very nice. Like my dog's gotten along with them in cities, villages, whatever. Um, because if they were aggressive with people or other dogs walking around, it wouldn't be tolerated. That would be
Right,
that.
right,
And they
right.
have like an okay life. I would say in some ways it'd be better than a homeless dog here. I mean, there are dogs, if they're homeless here, they're going to be spending the next 15 years in a cage spinning in a circle, and whereas, oh great, they have food and they get shots, like okay, um, that's not a quality of life. But the dogs that are village dogs, they can walk all day, they get to play, they at least have the chance to try to find food, so they're stimulating their mind.
Mm.
um, they might get hit by a car, something might happen to them, they can get sick, they're not going to get treatment, they're covered in bugs. But like, I think that their life is probably better than, and maybe their life is better than some pets, depending on where they're located.
Mm.
The dogs in the village I was at in El Salvador, like some were pretty hungry, but they all they have the opportunity to walk, to interact with other dogs. A lot of them had their begging game on point. So their life was basically like they wake up and then when it's cool, they're going to the beach and they're all playing.
That's interesting that they were, that they get along. But
Yeah, they
again,
have to
they're
get along.
socialized. They
Yeah, they have to
socialize.
get along. They're socialized. These are dogs that are low aggression, so they're not like there were some like dog scuffles and you see some of the dogs get beat up on, but for the most part everybody gets along. And they're also meeting my dog, and we had like a total of one problem the entire 2 weeks, and it was instantly like resolved.
A
And then
lot of
everybody
times,
was fine.
the problem is again the trainer, the human the
Yeah.
human involved was like, oh, and then that starts the aggression because the dog hears the person, the human being
Yeah.
screaming. Those are trying times. I mean, I walk my 3 dogs, and my girlfriend said to me the other day, she goes, "You don't take Mace with you?" And I'm like, No." And she goes, "Don't you think you should?" And I'm like, "Who am I macing? Another dog?" She goes, "Well, what happened if something happened?" And I have been walking and I have been told, don't go down that street. There, a shepherd's loose. And I'm like, a shepherd? That's not a good idea. I don't think I want to meet up with the shepherd. So I'll go the other way. But what do you do when you come up to a stray dog and you don't know the dog at all and you've got your dogs?
Well, in Central and South America, when I have my dog and there's loose dogs, and there's loose dogs, we might encounter 20 a day. I'm like carefully, calmly observing the dog, seeing how that dog is acting, looking at if my dog is acting funny, and then I'm letting the situation unfold. And if the situation goes south, which only happened once this last trip, then the other dog is getting hit hard with the leash because I have like a long leash with a clip at the end. And then typically they're like, oh shit, this woman means business, and they stop, and then everybody is going to get along after that. With dogs in the US, like it's more dangerous because you have people with crazy dogs here. The village dogs the village dogs generally are all these dogs that are like 20 to 35 pounds. They're mixes. They're like, and they're not like any kind of aggressive breed. They're just like a mutt. They're not enormously powerful, like they're manageable. Here, you could have a 120-pound beast dog running at your dog and grabbing them and stuff. So here in the US, if I had a loose dog running at us, if I felt the dog was coming up and it was up to no good and it's coming at them like a bullet, I would hit the dog really hard to get them to stop, kick them, hit them, whip them in the face with the leash. Because you have a very small moment in time to shut an attack down before it starts. Once the dog is already attacking your dog or grabbed onto them, now it's escalated, and you hitting the dog is like not going to do a lot.
No.
And so like, if you're not like, I'm physically quick and strong, and I have experience with dogs, so I can tell really quickly in a split second, like, okay, this is going to be good, or like, okay, I need to defend now. So if you're not able to do that, then pepper spray is a good idea. Yeah. Like you could carry an air horn, you could carry dog spray that's not pepper spray, but like in an attack, it's not going to do much probably. Yeah. It might stop a dog before they start.
There are, this is what I do when I'm walking the dogs, only because I'm trying to control 3 dogs on a leash. I'll tell them to stay, and they'll stay. So they're not like, I see a dog coming on a leash. Say I see a dog coming on a leash, and I move over to the other side of the street, and I tell the dogs to stay, and I let the other person come, or if they're going to stop, then we've got a Mexican standoff, and somebody's got to go. But then the humans can figure it out.
Yeah.
But the people that, like, if you're walking and they just keep coming at you, and you're like, come on, dude.
Yeah.
Your dog needs time to be able to figure this out.
Yeah.
And if your dog is moving and my dogs are moving, they could quickly jump on each other.
Yeah. So I don't do I don't do the like introducing my dog to other people's dogs on walks. My dog loves these street dogs because they're behaviorally normal and they're social and they're not obnoxious. Like somebody's dog straining at the leash, pulling to get to her, like, oh, I want to say hi. I want to say hi. She's like, loser, get out of my face.
No,
so I say like happens. And I'll just say like, my dog isn't friendly. My dog doesn't want to say hi. I don't want my dog dragging me to you like the way your dog is dragging you to me. Like, back up. And then like sometimes it's cultural too. Like in Portugal it was sort of bad because it's backwards. So we have a lot of people that have like dogs that are not so nice, and they want to bring their nasty dog up to your dog because they want them to work it out. It's the most bizarre thing. And I can't speak Portuguese. So you just have to pray that the person is going to understand like this and stop, or like one word. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
And yeah, it's weird. But then in other places, like people are very polite, so they're never gonna let their dog come up to your dog and be nasty, you know?
Right, right. It only makes sense. It only makes sense. I mean, they're not, they're not circus animals. This is,
No.
it can only end badly. I had somebody down the street, and they had two dogs, and they were walking the dogs. The dogs are going all over the place, and she's like, "Oh, let's introduce our dogs." And I was like, literally, I put my hand up and I said, "My dogs are in training." No. And she said to me, "I didn't think you were that way." I'm like, "Yeah,
That's
I am.
funny.
Bye." Like you said, some people are strange like that. And I was like,
Yeah.
not for nothing. This is not ego thing. This is like the dogs are going to behave in a certain way,
Yeah.
and they may get aggressive, especially you got three dogs and you've got two. There's a lot of things going on. They're trying to
Yeah.
protect the humans. They're trying, they're unsure of themselves. This one is breathing too heavy on that. It's just too much going on.
Yeah. And like at the end of the day too, I don't know you. I don't know your dog. I don't want your dog coming up to my dog. Your dog has teeth.
Really?
Like
Yeah.
my dog has
That's
plenty of friends, so she doesn't need to be friends with anybody else's dog.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not like my dog's better than your dog thing or whatever it is. It's
No.
like not a human thing. It's just, wave. Hi, how you doing? I mean, I must say there are so many people that I see on the walks, and very not often at all is there an idiot. Most people are pretty good. Most people are pretty good, especially people with the bigger dogs. I once a fellow was walking his two um, standard poodles, and the poodle dragged him down. And now he's on the ground with the poodle. It's winter, so he slipped, right? And I knew it was a male ego thing, but I could not help him. I had three dogs. What was I supposed to do? I felt very bad. I've seen the guy a lot. He didn't hold it against me, so it's
I
a
mean,
good
I
thing.
might be like, well, I'm calling the police. Sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
I think I said, "Are you okay?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm okay." I'm like, "Sorry." He goes, "No, don't worry about it." I'm like, men don't like, men don't like those types of things to happen. And then the last thing, the very last thing, this very last thing can go on forever. My girlfriend said to me, "What about those e-leashes?" I'm like, no. She goes, "But my friend." I'm like, "I don't care. Not in this house." So those
Yeah.
electronic leashes.
Yeah, electronic collars, e-collar, which is like a word for shock collar. And they love to say like, "Oh, an e-collar isn't a shock collar." Well, then what's a shock collar? Because they're all the same thing, working with the same, like there are cheap e-collars and there are expensive e-collars, and the expensive e-collars have more levels and you can dial them down really low. But like it's an e-collar, shock collar, it's like tomato tomato, let's call it what it is. And we don't use or recommend them. I have friends and colleagues that use electric collars, and it's like I'm not crazy about it, but I don't care. Like you do you, as long as you're not like wildly abusing your dog. But it's not something that it's just not a. I'm just not interested in that kind of relationship with my animals. And I have never met somebody that doesn't in the end use the e-collar to punish their dog at some point. So the common thing now is calling it like, oh, it's like a leash, it's communication, and you only use it on a very low level so that the dog feels it like a tap, but it doesn't hurt them. And every single person that I've met, at some point when the dog doesn't listen to it like a tap, they ramp it up so that it hurts. And so once you do that, now the tap is associated with pain, so it's all the same to the pet. And so I I think if e-collars were used purely for communication and they were never used above a level where it just feels like a gentle tap to the dog, I'd be like, okay, your pet isn't afraid. They show no signs of stress. Like logically, I'm not seeing anything that is upsetting me. But that's not how it actually is. So I think with modern training now, we have to be careful because a lot of people are saying they use the e-collar positively, they use the e-collar, and it's not the way it used to be used. It's balanced training because now they're using rewards. But at the end of the day, these are people who are still ramping it up and using punishment and other forms of punishment with their dogs. And so it's just not for me. Although, I have some friends whose dogs, they use e-collars, and I'm like, okay, well, we could still be friends. Like, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking so eloquently about it. It's complicated, and people get really upset if you talk about it. But
well, I think, this is how I look at it. I will get impatient and I will get angry when the dog does something bad. And I have, for example, the dogs will eat odd things on the walk. And I have not been able to get them not to eat goose poop. That's like pate to them. They're like, wow. And when they do get a bite of it, it's a reward for them. So now they're like, it's positive in its own little world. Yeah. And I'm like, we kiss. Don't do that. You lick me. Please don't. So I'll get angry when they grab the goose poop. So usually I try to train them in one way or another. Like, we'll almost walk up to it. I'll say no. And I'll like pull them away a little bit. And then I'll say, good. No eat, no eat, no eat. And, so they know this little routine, but occasionally they'll be like, is she looking? Is she looking? So, when I do get mad, I'll hit the little rump, but I would never smack it in its face. And I look at the e-collar as smacking a dog in the face. And I would never, ever smack a dog in its face. Ever. A little rump, a little like, I told you not to do that. Oh, I'm sorry. They know now that I'm angry.
Well, they don't know that you're.
I don't like to hit dogs.
Yeah, I don't know that they know that you're angry. I know that what they know is a person can go from safe to dangerous. They don't understand that another being can feel the same emotion as them, because that involves like theory of mind, where they can say, oh, I sometimes feel angry and I bite Johnny, my friend, when he tries to hump me. And when I feel angry, like somebody else could feel angry. Like, they don't. All they know in that moment is that you became dangerous. And keep in mind, no dog ever physically assaults another dog for anything other than an invasion of their own space or property. So when we like smack a dog for eating goose poop, or even for like jumping on the couch or whatever, like any benign, anything, that is not what another dog would do. Other dogs don't give a shit what you're doing as long as you're not coming at me. You know what I mean? Like, yes. Dogs act to defend their own physical safety and their property and nothing else.
Right.
And
this so is my food, this is my bowl, this is my toy. That's it.
Yeah. Or this is my space. Don't touch me. So like when we start like getting upset with dog, and like, granted, everybody loses their temper on their dog. So I'm not knocking you if you smack your dog in the butt. Like, everybody loses their temper, and how we lose our temper looks differently depending on who we are. But like, dogs don't understand when we punish them that we're doing it because we lost our temper or because they did something bad. They're just like, wow, my mother is really erratic. One second she's, sitting at her computer, and the next second she's saying the F word 50 times and stomping around the house. I just wanted to bring cat turds into the living room. I don't know.
And they're so good. They're delicious. Would you like one? I'll share my cat turds.
Yes, they do. Some share, some don't.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean,
but the e-collar, the e-collar at a low level, it doesn't hurt. At a high level, it's like crazy, and it's literally shocking in that like you don't expect it. So it's one thing if I'm like, I'm gonna hit you, and then I hit you like you, or I'm like, I'm gonna pinch you, and I tell you I'm going to do it. Or even if I put the e-collar on you and I'm like, hey, you want to feel what this feels like? Get ready. That's different than you're walking around living your life and then something is attacking you on your neck, and that's stressful to never know when it's going to happen. Yeah.
when I get angry with them over the goose poop and they're looking at me like, what? I
Yeah.
cannot figure out how to get them not to eat goose poop. I cannot figure out.
I mean, I've like, mine are loose, so who knows what they're eating in the yard? Like, oh well, the ship has sailed. And it's kind of, they say that like they're supposed to eat poop for their microbiome, so they physically crave it. And goose poop is all like grass anyway. So
I know. It's
basically, I
grazing.
just tell them to stop and I scream. I'm like, no, stop.
Yeah, that's what I do. I'm like, no eat poop, no eat. I
Yeah.
mean, the thing is, we're walking and people have the strangest habits. It's like, oh, I just finished this, chicken McNugget, and they throw it out the door, and there's chicken McNuggets in the street. Or, oh, I just finished my muffin, and they throw it out the
Yeah.
window. It's like, what are these people doing? What are they thinking? And I don't know where this food is coming from. So, walking down the street, there's a muffin, and I'm like, don't you dare, no eat. And dog's going like, maybe she's not looking now.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
no
you
eat.
can teach a strong leave it, but what we, another thing we do is we teach them, oh, if you see something like that you want to eat, if you look at me, I'll give you something better. So they learn to tattle on themselves. Like there's lots of ways to teach them
That's the
not to
distraction
eat.
thing.
Yeah.
That's the distraction thing.
No, it's not even that. It's like a skill where you teach them that if they want something, they have to look at you. So like if my dog sees like a muffin on the ground, and he's like, ooh, a muffin, he'll look at me to be like, can I have that muffin? And then I can just reward him from my hand with chicken or something for looking at me, and we continue on. It's like they tattle on themselves because they think that the best way to get what they want is by looking at you, and that's like our eye contact game.
Right. Well, that's a good thing.
But that also requires a lot of training and diligence, and like sometimes it's just easier to keep your dog on a leash and just not keep a short leash and just don't let them eat it. Or you can work hard and train them. But like I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, every dog must be trained like a robot and it's your fault if your dog isn't perfect. Like, okay, not all of us feel like training our dog to that extent, and that's okay.
Yeah. It was like I went into Petco and I was talking to the woman and her dog was there and she said, sit. And the dog sat and didn't move. Didn't move for a 15-minute conversation. I was like, see, I can't do that to my dog.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
I don't even I don't even expect my dog to do that. That it's like why can't my dog like choose what position they're in, or if they want to look at something? Like I'm not like, okay, robot.
That's but I have been able to get Lucy, not Tasha. Tasha's still looking for the goose poop. I have been able to get Lucy to look at me. So maybe I'll bring little treats. And the next time she sees a piece of goose poop, instead of me saying no eat, I'll say, good girl, no eat. And she'll, in other words, I'll turn it into a positive.
Or you just say their name and call them away from the goose poop every single time. And eventually they learn, hey, when there's goose poop, she calls me, I get treats. I'm not going to go over to the goose poop. But I would never walk without treats. I mean, the only dog I walk without treats is the dog that'll chase a leaf, because I don't need treats to reward her. But if you sometimes have treats and you sometimes don't, if you sometimes reward and you sometimes don't, they quickly learn. Sometimes she pays. I know when she doesn't. I'm only going to listen 10% of the time. So that's like a big thing. And so many people's dogs would be better trained if all they did was just take treats with them on walks and have a little cup of treats on their desk to ask their dog to do things and reward them. And then just to touch again on the like adopting a dog thing. We do love when people adopt shelter dogs. And I think one thing people can do is just hire a behavior trainer to meet the dog beforehand and help you pick a dog out. Like we pick dogs for clients all the time. I hand pick dogs from breeders for some of my clients. And I also will pick dogs from shelters for clients and evaluate a whole bunch of dogs. And I have dogs that come into our town shelter and I'm like, oh, this is a stellar dog. And I then tell people I know about that dog, like clients and friends, so that dog can get adopted quickly, because when a real good one comes in, and it's not rocket science to evaluate a truly nice dog, and they are out there. And we always recommend adopting locally. Like rather than getting dogs from out of state and getting dogs that are shipped around the country.
Well,
it's
it's
always
easier,
good.
if you're going to evaluate, it's easy for you to, be able to
Yeah. And then we know where the dog is coming from, at least. And if you adopt a dog that's local, you're truly saving a life. Like adopting a dog that's coming from out of state and they brought them here because they're cute and they're going to flip them in New York City. It's nice. And it's a pet. It's an animal. It needs a home, but you're not really saving something that 20 people put in their name for. Like the true rescue is really rescuing dogs from our animal control here in New York, which is filled with dogs, mostly pit bulls. And many of them are really nice, and they just need somebody that like looks beyond that. That's how they look to adopt them.
They're very smart dogs. I mean, they're good. They can be very good dogs. Unfortunately, people train them badly.
Well, they can be nice and they can be not nice. You have to like each one is an individual.
Oh, there goes Tasha.
Oh,
tail up. Where'd you go?
Well, this was fun.
It was a lot of fun. How can people find you?
So you can find me on. Sorry, can you hear my dog barking in the background?
Yes, it's okay. It's quite all right.
I think somebody came home.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Now here comes Tasha back. Tasha's back. Hi, sweetie.
So people can find me on my website, Thinking Canine, CANINE.com, or on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or Facebook. And my handle is always Thinking Canine.
Cool. I really appreciate the time.
Thanks. It was nice to meet you.
You too. Dogs are forever. Oh, now I've got two dogs.
Yes.
I've got Lucy and Tasha. My foot. I kept on thinking, what is this warm thing? And I looked down. It's not Tasha. It's Lucy.
Mine are all locked out. So
they want to go. Speaking of out, that's what they want to do. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Have a lovely evening.
Good to meet you.
Peace out.
Bye. Have a good night.
You too.